that one.
Just keep it, kosher.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to figure out.
We're live. 10 seconds.
It's okay. One of my truths gonna be about you. That'll be easy.
What? This is about you. This is not about me.
Yeah, you're part of regular life.
Jesus, this is going to be a very interesting situation. All right, so we are here for another installment of Lily's podcast. Today's topic is church chaos. We have the one and the only Dr. Pastor Reverend Elder Drew Kendall Ross here, and then we have the one and the only, the homie Tay Shantae, who will be joining us in this dialogue. Some of you have sent in questions already, which is cool beans. I've let them know a couple of them, but some questions I didn't tell them. So hey, we're gonna see what happens. 1 second, make sure. Okay, we are. All right. So for icebreaker that I just told you about 5 seconds ago, we're gonna do two truths. I can't even say that fast. And a lie. You have to tell us 2 truths, 1 lie, and we have to figure out which one is the lie. And since I just told y'all, who wants to go first?
Shantae.
Y'all can rock, paper, scissors, but somebody has to go.
Okay. Let's see. 2 truths and a lie. Let's make this difficult.
Oh God.
I was arrested for drunk driving. I have only lived in Maryland. No, I don't know. Yeah, I'm not doing good with this one. All right, I was arrested for drunk driving. I am 34 and I don't know. I passed in New Jersey.
What?
What in the world?
Hey, that's what when you tell us day of.
Who's guessing the truths and the lies? Me and you?
Well, I mean, I think it's pretty easy, but you can go for it, Tay. I mean, he didn't really give us.
Oh, is she picking? You didn't tell me she's picking. I think we know each other too well to pick out 2 truths and a lie.
I think so too. But
you need to leave that to the audience.
Okay, so what are your 2 truths and a lie, Andrew?
I don't know them anymore. I was thinking on the spot.
God of strength. You're 34.
There you go.
You passed her in New Jersey.
And you got arrested for drunk driving.
Right.
Yeah.
So for those who are watching, which one is Drew's lie? Which is easy for anybody. I mean, like, mommy said drunk driving.
Hey, well, I mean, it's
okay. So your turn.
The lie is probably more about the driving than anything else.
It's a lie.
Hey, what's your 2 truths and the lie?
Okay, so I have 1 child. I am a property manager. And yeah, this is hard.
See, I'm not the only one stumped.
It's not hard.
I'm allergic to peanuts.
See, that wasn't hard. Oh, wow. Mommy say, here comes the lie. So apparently BJ thinks the last one is a lie. So you have a son, you're a property manager, and you're allergic to peanuts. I'm going to go with C for 400, Alex.
I'm definitely not allergic to peanuts. Oh, praise the Lord, saints.
Anyway, we're going to dive into the conversation. Y'all failed the icebreaker. I just want to let you know you're the first two that has failed the icebreaker in the short history of Lee's podcast.
You ever did these questions? You ever did this as an icebreaker?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
You always do the same one?
No, not always the same one, but I've done this one before, and it's fine. It's okay.
I know you told people before 5 seconds.
No, I didn't. I didn't tell them anything until we went live. Actually, I gave y'all like a 5-second head start, and you didn't go very far. All right, so Church Chaos, wanted to definitely dive into that. Wanted to talk about initially when the pandemic hit. What were your thoughts as Drew being a pastor and Shantae being a leader in the Lord's church? What were your initial thoughts, if you had any, as a person first, like as just a human being? And then what were your thoughts as far as a pastor or leader?
Drew?
Initially, I was confused because I wasn't sure what was going on. I was first in the stage where I was thinking that if people wash their hands and do what they're supposed to do, then we'd be okay. I'm like, the only people probably catching this virus are people who are dirty. I mean, because that's how they made it. It's like public hygiene and making sure you wash your hands and, all those type of things. It wasn't the fact that it was airborne and, those type of things. So they made it more about being properly cautious of your, habits. And then after that, I thought it was like a 2 to 4 week window that we would be disrupted and we would quickly get back to a sense of normalcy. It wasn't until probably about May that I really realized how long-term things would be. And then that's when I started, talking more like end of the year or so. I'm still amazed now that we're in the position we're in. Around about April, because I was in the epicenter of everything. I mean, New Jersey and New York got hit the absolute hardest. And because of that, I started to see things that people didn't see as much in other spots. Actually, when the first COVID case in New Jersey came up, the person is in Bergen County, the same county I pastor in, and was checked in to Hackensack Hospital.
Right.
And one of my members checked the COVID patient in.
Mercy.
And did not find out until 2 days later that she was in the presence of someone who had COVID. And so she immediately was self-quarantining on like the 14th of March before it really became. Actually, no, the 7th of March. Sorry, it wasn't even that late. We had Women's Day on the 8th of March, and it looked like ghost town in my church. That was a week before the last week that most people had. And so it was definitely difficult. And then to watch the numbers of people dying in the amount that it was. I had not been here that long, of course, you both know that. But to see people that I knew from being here die in the short period of time that I had been here, like a year or so at that point, to me was amazing. So, it was frightening. I will say at one point, it was hard not to get depressed when you watch the news and see the numbers daily and watch, what was going on. So that was my initial thoughts.
So my initial thoughts, I think it just came on really, really quickly, like really, really suddenly, because my birthday is March 7th. So I had went away. I was away in Aruba in March 7th. And in Aruba, they weren't talking about COVID at all. And we had just started hearing a little bit about it prior to us going, but it was like it wasn't in the US like that. And so I got back on March 13th, and then everything shut down maybe like 2 days later. And so it was crazy to me. Like I couldn't understand it at all. And I'm like, is it real? Is it not real? Like, what is really happening? And then we were in quarantine, so I too thought it was just going to be like a 2 to 4 week type thing. Definitely didn't think it would go beyond a month. I think that Sunday that I came back was like the last Sunday that we went to church before everything shut down, and so it was just crazy to me. I really didn't understand it. It took me until maybe like after the quarantine period when we were in quarantine. I actually still had to work during that time because we were considered essential. But even then, it wasn't something that I could really grasp, really. And it wasn't until maybe about close to summertime that I realized that this was going to be a long-term thing. So it was definitely a big shocker. I mean, of course, as everybody knows, I mean, I'm pretty sure all of our lives have been uprooted since then. Me even more so because my son's in school, and so transitioning to like the virtual schooling and stuff like that has been a task. Yes, it's been a task.
So from the perspective of the church, I guess Drew as a pastor, and then Tay, just the idea of not being able to go to church for, at this point, a year. But initially when you Drew as a pastor had to reshift some things as far as, your membership and how you did church on Sundays, and then Tay, your response as far as the fact that you couldn't go.
In the end of 2019, I presented a proposal to our church at our end of the year church meeting to install media equipment throughout our entire sanctuary, not knowing that a pandemic was even going to hit. It was something that our trustees had been working on for like probably about 6 months. And we did it. We got it through to the church. And it was installed the last week of January and the first week of February. So we were probably a month into our media equipment, cameras, and all of that before the shutdown happened. So it was an opportunity for our congregation to see vision in a way that they never expected. It's so funny, when we had the church meeting to present it, because of the number, one of the members asked, "Do we really need all of this?" And I said, "Yeah, we do." And people had their different opinions about it, but we ended up needing all of that. I will say, though, probably to many people surprised to hear me say this from a pastoral perspective, when we first shut down, I was a little nervous in the beginning, but I really enjoyed it. It was the first time in years that I had been home on a Sunday without the hustle and bustle of waking up first thing in the morning, getting ready for church, not getting back home until the late afternoon, being pulled in so many different directions. I remember after I kind of settled into things around about May, late April, May, I would get up on Sunday morning, I would cook breakfast. I would be able to relax on the sofa. I was able to just rest. We were recording 3 to 4 weeks at a time so that we didn't have to have as many interactions, and we could keep a 14-day window between our interactions with one another. And so literally we would go down to the church once or twice a month. I wasn't going in the office. We weren't really doing much. And I got the best rest that I had in a long time. And I think that was something. And because I'm naturally an introvert, I did not mind not having some of those moments of interaction just because they can be overwhelming at times, and I hadn't had it. And so it was a great experience.
That's a different perspective.
Yes, very different from mine.
Very different.
But I can appreciate, I mean, I can understand that. So, and from a pastor's perspective, but my experience was the complete opposite. Like, church has literally been the one thing that I've missed the absolute most in all of this. And I'm opposite again. I'm not an introvert. So I'm not an introvert. So I am missing the interaction, like the fellowship and seeing people. Like, I've seen like people virtually or like through social media and stuff. Like, the kids, those children are huge compared to when we last seen them in person. And it's crazy to me. So that it has been really disheartening for me. Like, I still get up every Sunday and I watch church every Sunday, but it's like a task for me. Whereas once upon a time, it was second nature for me to hop up and go to church. But now it's just like, I gotta do this again, kind of thing. So it's definitely a different experience for me than that. And as time goes on, it just gets worse to me. Like, the media and everything has gotten a whole lot better, because that was a part of the issue for me too in the beginning, was because trying to navigate how we were going to get on church, from like conference calls to like video calls, and now being live. So it's better now, but it does not make the experience any better, in my opinion.
Yeah,
it's better to watch, but like, I don't feel any better about it than I did back in last year.
I agree. I think missing the whole human part, even though I'm not really a hugger, I'm not really affectionate. I realized how much the hugs and the old lady kisses and kiss on your cheek and hey, how you doing, ball you out, send you on your way. Like, I do miss being able to physically see that everybody's okay. And then when you do virtual things and you look at people on like Zoom or whatever, and you catch up with church people, like, you look at their face and you like, they're not okay. But there's nothing you can do about it. Like, there's nothing you can do to fix it. There's nothing you can do to change it. I would also say, I think I actually have worked harder during the pandemic as a leader than I have actually in the church. Like, that sleeping thing or make breakfast, I don't have time for that. I don't get up and get fully dressed for church. I just get up and whatever you get is what you get. And to be able to do the stream and then afterwards have all the members catch up, I mean, it's a lot to be able to make sure we keep some type of connection. I appreciate the fact that we are a smaller church, because like churches with like thousands and thousands of members, like, how in the world are you still reaching like people? Like, how are you making sure everybody's okay? Not just as a pastor, but as a member. Like, that would drive me insane. So yeah. What were your expectations initially, Pastor Drew, from your members, or if you had any?
I really didn't have any expectations, because I think that one of the things that happened pre-COVID is most of our churches were on autopilot. We did the same thing every Sunday, which is why this experience has made it so difficult for many people to transition, because now they're having to create church that they never knew,
Right.
from something that they don't have a template for.
Right.
And now we're even watching people who might be a year behind what people were doing last year this time. We're starting to do that, while some people are starting to pivot and do other things. And so you'll see different methods of what is trailblazing now, as people are still just kind of doing what people were doing last year this time in the very beginning. So I really didn't have any expectations. I did not know what the attendance was going to be like virtual. I did not know what the giving was going to be like virtual. I did not know if my members were going to even survive the pandemic, to be honest. I mean, with the spike in our numbers, I didn't know how many funerals I was going to do. So there was more fear, but the fear didn't hit initially because I was only doing this for 2 to 4 weeks. So even if we had a bad month, I felt like we could bounce back.
Right.
The fear happened after May and June and realizing it's going to be longer than we think. And it's funny, at the end of the year last year, I asked all of our deacons and trustees in our final meeting of the year to tell me something that they learned about God during this pandemic. Mm. And so I went last and I gave them personal, and then I also gave them pastoral. And my pastoral thing that I learned about God is even the more it's his church. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times we as pastors take on the stress of ownership. Really, during this pandemic, I couldn't guarantee anything. I couldn't guarantee that people were going to show up virtual. I couldn't guarantee people were going to give. I couldn't guarantee that our members would still be alive. I could, none of that stuff could I guarantee. But one thing that I had to realize is it's not my job to guarantee.
Right.
It's God's job to take care of his church. And in 2020, we raised more and saw more engagement in our church than we have in the last 10 or 12 years. And so it was interesting just to see how things unfolded.
Tay, did you have any expectations, I guess, from a member or leader perspective, from your pastor, or from how all of this would kind of pan out so that church could kind of continue being what church is?
Because things were so unknown, I don't think that I really had an expectation other than for there to be an avenue for church, like for people to be in church. I also was afraid for like BJ said, how older members were having a time with trying to figure out how to have church. I did have that expectation that it would be something, there would be an avenue for older people to understand or be able to engage in. So that was maybe one expectation that I had, but for me, myself, I didn't have an expectation from the church or from my pastor other than to have church. Because that was, at that time, with things being so unknown and people being afraid and not knowing, church was the one place that people could get some form of comfort or reassurance or even just faith if that was all that you had. So I knew that my only expectation was that there still be church.
And I think that senior piece is major. I know we struggle getting our seniors to, because a lot of our seniors don't really like technology. So it was like, if you want to watch church, like you have to have some type of avenue to do it. And that was a struggle, because then that takes away from them not being able to get the full experience, as opposed to like we're sitting here, we're watching the service and they're just, kind of either on the conference call line or struggling with their smartphones that they don't know how to work, but us not being able to get to them to make it accessible. I think that was, we got through it, but it was a task. It was definitely something that I think most churches struggle with, especially for seniors that don't have computers, that don't have a smartphone. Like, what is your option? Like, you really don't have one.
But see, I never struggled with that. And I'm going to tell you why. Because I relied on this. If they don't have a smartphone, then they're not used to that experience. We are used to an experience for them that we want for them that we are having. That's not their reality. They've never watched YouTube stuff on their phones.
Well, no. Their experience is being in the building.
Correct.
And that was gone. So we had to create an experience for them.
Right. But here's my point. I'm getting somewhere with it.
Okay.
Most of the seniors spend a lot of time on the phone talking to each other. So it's not hard for them to hold the phone for an hour or 2 hours to listen to church.
Mm-hmm.
True.
But I'll tell you what the conference call did for us. It gave my seniors an opportunity to connect in a way that they normally do, which is when service is over, they can talk on the conference call line to one another because they're used to being on the phone. So I didn't worry as much about creating that visual experience because they got a chance to connect and have conversation after church by being on the phone line.
So now that y'all have moved to what y'all do now, is the conference line still an option?
Yep. So we even though we stream live on Sundays, we have a way where we patch the audio in so that when they call in on the conference call line, and it's we just put a phone underneath of a TV and let the sound from the TV produce to the conference call line, and it does. We use a TV in the church. And it's just easy for them. And I think they like it better. Then some of them are 90 years old. They're not trying to learn how to mess with no iPad or TV. You know, for me, it's better for them to get an experience that is going to be stable for them to use, that won't frustrate them, than it is for me to try to give them some 5-star virtual experience with all of these things that each week I don't know whether they're going to get on or not.
Right. I guess then in essence the challenge is, or not the challenge, but the challenge is being able to accommodate each generation.
Right.
Because every generation is different. They have access to different things. They want different things, and being able to still make God accessible or the word accessible, regardless of where you are on the spectrum.
Now, there are some seniors in my church who cannot do this. They don't do this online experience well, right? But we have allowed some of them to come in the building on Sundays.
Okay.
There's not a lot of us there, but we're gonna take care of y'all. We do all of our measures, temperature checking. You got to sign in and all of that. But some of them have started since we were going live on Sundays, coming back some Sundays. And if they need that interaction, I'm not gonna stop them.
Sure. BJX, do you feel that you can reach more of your members with the pandemic? I think that's for both leader and pastor. Do you think this has been better or worse?
I think it's been better for me because we have had, so one of the things that I've found out moving here that's much different than Baltimore is this. Because it is so expensive to live in this area, I am in the most north, and you know this, Shantae, from having come up, the most northern part of New Jersey you can be in before you are in New York City. I can take a 20-minute drive, 25-minute drive, and be in Times Square. So it is expensive to live here. A lot of our people in retirement move south because they can have a better quality of life for much cheaper. Well, this pandemic has allowed a lot of the people who have moved to reconnect with New Hope. And some of them have reinstated their membership and will watch virtually.
Okay.
And because of that, it gives them the opportunity to still be connected to the church that they want to be a part of, no matter where they are.
Tay, do you think it's been easier or more difficult as a leader to?
I would say yes and no, because I agree that there's this virtual world is a whole world that reaches people that we can't reach in person.
Right.
I do agree with that. But then on the other hand, there is a world where you can't reach people virtually. You got to see them face to face. You got to ask them how they're doing. You got to give them a hug to be able to give them what it is that they need, or even to share God with them.
Right.
Some people need it to be hands-on.
Yeah.
So my answer is just saying no. Like for a person like me, I guess I'm pretty flexible. So I can do it either way, but I'd much rather be in person. Much rather. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, if we're all honest, all of our churches are honest. We've lost some people too.
Certainly. I agree.
Not because we've done anything wrong, but just because people's attention span is not.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of my newer members who have joined prior to the pandemic, I was very worried about them, whether or not they would stay captivated enough with everything. The one thing that's really awesome about the way our church is structured is each of our members is assigned to a deacon. And our deacon list for each person, for each group, is not really large. So they're responsible for checking in with their membership once or twice a month. And they give reports at the deacon meeting about it. So a lot of people have been called and kept in the loop. So that has helped. And we've created in-person opportunities like drive around, get meals, and, we did things during the summertime that were socially distant but fun, DJ outside, things like that, where people could just stay their distance, but we could also give people an opportunity to come, in person.
And I also think that that's important because some churches haven't done that. And I think that because the time that we've been in this has been so long, it's now time to start doing other things, because people will lose interest or just be disheartened enough to just say that, do away with it. So I definitely think, and I would challenge the church from my perspective to start finding other avenues, or maybe creating outdoor, especially now that the weather is breaking, an outdoor experience where everyone could stay a safe distance apart, or even stay in their vehicles. But at least we get to see people and interact with actual people.
Yeah. So we have a rule in my leadership right now that's going on throughout the pandemic. We don't let 3 months go by where we don't create an opportunity for our members to at least drive around on the parking lot for something. We gave away gift cards for Thanksgiving. We made every member pick up their gift card for Thanksgiving. And people felt like it might have been an inconvenience, but it was a way to get all our members have to come to the office for some reason or another. And we blocked out days. So we had leaders there to see people. For Christmas, we mailed them, but we had other opportunities where we just had food and celebrations. Church anniversary, we did something outside. Family and Friends Day, we did something outside. People couldn't really get out of their car like that, but they drove around. We had a DJ. I mean, sometimes people get a little more comfortable. We didn't argue about those things, but we let them do it, which is one of the major reasons why we did our Easter service outside on the high school parking lot. And we knew a lot of people want to come to church, and we were able to get like 225 people outside in a safe environment with our people being excited about it. And it takes work, but I think we have to find ways to get them together for something and then let them go back out for a little bit.
We actually were fortunate enough actually not to lose any members outside of the one we lost. She passed from COVID. We meet once a month because we have communion once a month. What normally happens is pastor will give out, we'll do like a pull up and pray. She'll give out the communion elements. And then that Sunday, we do communion. But we've actually grown as far as in membership since the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of people who have joined just off of the strength of our virtual experience. So that's why, every church is different in however they, communicate. But I think for us, we're just fortunate enough not to have nobody disengaged. They were probably frustrated with the whole transition. Mm-hmm. But we had to really take the time and make sure everybody worshiped from their comfortability. So like the older people, because some of them might know this, I ain't gonna say old people. So like the church mothers did through the conference call line, and they're even now growing to a point where they're open to doing stuff online. So like Mother Johnson is now watching service on YouTube. It was a challenge getting her on the computer, but yeah, we actually had the blessing of growth, and the only hit we took was from COVID taking life. But yeah, it's definitely been a very interesting roller coaster. I remember that initially when it first hit, one of the things that did come up was pastors' push for giving, not realizing that, or maybe realizing, I don't know, that people are now forced to survive off of whatever they had. People were losing their jobs. People were just couldn't work because they couldn't go. And it was the push for, give that kind of put a disdain taste in certain people's mouths. I saw it all up and down my timeline. It's like, you want me to give, but blah, blah, blah. So like just touching on that, I know you didn't do it, but what was your expectation for giving? Or did you just let them do what they could and trust God with it?
Me?
Yes, Pastor.
My expectation was that people would give. And I'll say it like this. Givers give. And givers don't get mad when they have to give. Most people that complain about giving are people that don't give.
True.
So I don't worry about the complainers. I first came to my church. One of the ladies left the church because she said I talk about tithing too much. I said, just because you don't tithe, that's why you're upset. Because people that tithe are not mad about hearing about tithing. So if you're unemployed and you have no income, you can't give. I cannot expect something from you that the word of God doesn't expect. 10% of nothing is nothing.
Right.
But 10% of those who have an income is the 10%. So I would say every Sunday through the pandemic, if you've been laid off, if you've been unemployed, if you're unemployed, if you've been going through a difficult season, you may not be able to give every time we ask you to give. And it's okay. The strong can bear the infirmities of the weak.
Right.
My expectation is that those whose money has not been affected would give to the level that God is asking and to the level that they have been. And you know what I found out? Some people who weren't giving started giving. And some people who may have had to fall off, when they got back up, they gave again. But we are a collective community. So it's not that when one person that may be a great giver can't give anymore, now they're kicked to the curb. No, you are celebrated for your faithfulness because you probably feel bad about not being able to give. And then we rally for those of us who can do it, or stabilize and do what we can. People say stuff like, oh, I can't give because I'm on a fixed income. All our income is fixed. Your check is the same every 2 weeks.
You're right.
All our income is fixed. So what? That's the excuse. 10% is equal sacrifice, even if it's not equal dollar amount. Mm-hmm. Now, one thing I did not do that I saw some people do, and it's no problem. I did not say to people, tithe off your stimulus check. Things like that, where people come into small breathing money.
Right.
And then there's this, but let me tell you, but people who are givers,
they're doing anyway.
What they want to do, because they know it. Their responsibility to give is not to give to me. Yeah. It's not to give to the church. And when I say the church, they give the church because the church is the portal that God asked for it to be given through. Yeah. They're ultimately giving to God. So if you don't want to give, that's between you and God. I don't have to answer for that. I do what I have to do, because on that day when I have to speak about it, I'm only talking about me.
Right.
You know, and for people that say they don't give because they don't like what the church does with their money, or this person gets this, or that person gets that, you know, that's not our responsibility to worry about.
Right.
And the reality is, and a lot of people don't always understand this, when that Malachi piece is pulled up where he says, you're robbing me in tithes and offerings, you haven't brought the tithe. The backstory is that the people stopped giving because they didn't like how the priests were mismanaging the money. So they stopped giving, but God still called them robbers.
Right.
Because it's not your responsibility to slack in giving because you don't like the way the money's being spent. No, you let God deal with them and you do what you're supposed to do. And so I watched our offerings continue, tithing continue, and really our money was better in 2020 than it had been in 10 plus years. And we might be on track for more in 2021. But the reality of it is you just had to teach people about being faithful. One thing I said, I was in a conversation the other day, I was talking to Alan Michael, who I've seen pop up on here. And I said to him, we were talking about people returning and then maybe people giving more when they return. And I said to him, givers give whether they're in the building or not. And people who are not giving aren't giving whether they're in the building or not.
Mm-hmm.
When I look back at my reports for who gives what, the people who are tithing been tithing, and the people that don't tithe, they haven't been tithing.
Yeah, and that's a fact.
And as a leader, Tay, look, what's your take or perspective as far as giving during the pandemic? I know that you are a giver, a tither, but as far as like, you know, any conversations that maybe you've had to persuade persons to be or give, what's your take on it?
Mine is the same, literally what Dr. Drew said, because that was my expectation. I didn't think that because a pandemic had came, that I wasn't supposed to give anymore. Even when we were in the building, if I was away or didn't come to church that Sunday and it was my week to tithe, I was still sending my tithes. So I don't think, and I mean, ultimately, it's like the Bible says that we have to tithe. And so if that is the requirement from God, we should be still tithing. And I haven't had to persuade anyone. Still on Sunday mornings, the people that I would talk to or sit next to on Sunday morning, we text during service the whole time. And we all still be like, is it our week to tithe? And text messages. So we're still giving. All of us are still giving. So I really haven't had to have those kind of conversations about church during the pandemic.
Now, I will say this to kind of spice your conversation up a little bit. One of the things that frustrates me as a pastor is that sometimes the people with the biggest critiques about church don't give.
Mm-hmm.
You want this big, excellent thing. You want this presentation of big stuff. You want to help manage the money. You want to talk about what we're paying for and not paying for. And I have to say sometimes, with what you give, we couldn't put a light bulb up, let alone do this grand presentation. And so sometimes the people who want to talk the most don't give anything to be able to do the ideas that they come up with. And, and I hear people say, well, I tithe in my time, I tithe in my talent, and I'm like, okay. And if that's your method, even though that's not what the biblical standard is, if that's what your method is, 168 hours in a week, I need to see you 16.8 hours.
Mm-hmm.
If you give me 17 hours of free labor, then I can make your time worth it to be able to accomplish stuff. But most of the time, it's little on interaction, it's little on involvement, it's little on giving, but it's big expectation from the leader.
Right.
But one of the things, and we talk about mutual accountability and what the church offers from pastoral leadership to people. One of the things I had to explain to our congregation in giving is this: we employ people, not just me. musicians, people who work in the office, who clean the building, other things. So your giving helps me to not have to lay them off.
Right.
So I paid every one of our employees the entire pandemic, every dime that they would have normally gotten. They never took a pay cut, never had a check missed, nothing ever bounced, no issues. Just like you don't want to be laid off from your job, they don't want to be laid off from theirs either. And we made a commitment when we approved the budget that we were going to rally together to accomplish this as a church. And because of that, they have stuff that they need to do. And I want to make sure that we're not the cause that their stuff falls behind either. And so we paid them everything. They didn't work for months. We paid them. I found stuff for our contracted employees to do, our musicians and stuff to do, so that we had a reason to pay them.
Yeah, I think it's important, and we're getting ready to wrap up shortly. I think it's important to understand that the only thing that has changed is that we're not in the building. Mm-hmm. That's it. People still need a word. People still need to be saved. Lights still need to be on, because one of the things that my pastor says often is when we come back, you're going to want to be able to hit that light switch and that it worked. You're going to want to be able to pull up and still see Jesus Nazareth on the front door. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the same. I mean, just like you would with your own house, you can't skip and still expect you can't skip a mortgage payment and still expect to like live there. Like you can't not pay a light bill and still expect to turn the lights on. And it is the same. And once we all as a body of Christ understand our role in keeping God's house, if we keep his house and he keeps ours, the same blessing that I've received tithing pre-pandemic is the same blessing that God is still giving during the pandemic. We want the blessings, like you said, Drew. We want the benefits. We want this big sight and sound production, but yet we don't want to pull our weight and take responsibility for what God has called us to, because that's at the end of the day most important. One more question, and then we are out of here. One of the questions that were sent in is asking about how to honor and respect your pastor and your church by still being exactly who you are. It was sent by a younger person, not like young, but young enough. And so I think that is a conversation that should be had from both perspectives. I know me and Tay, we live our life like it's golden, and no disrespect to anyone. It's just we live our life like it's golden. But I know that on some aspects, from a pastor standpoint or whatever, it could hinder witnesses and all that other type of stuff. So how do we find the balance of living life and still honoring the house that we worship?
I'm gonna speak on it first, Drew.
I was hoping you would.
I'll start off saying, because I do live my life like it's golden, but recognizing that the church and pastors are all people is the one thing. We do have to live up to a moral standard. I think we should. Recognizing your place in your or recognizing who we are, like understanding who you are and whose you are is a big part of the way you live your life. So yes, I may go out, or I travel, or I hang out, or I party, but knowing that there's still a standard for my life from God, and recognizing that the church is not here to judge us, and it could be the fact that once upon a time church did judge you, or maybe a person was judged in church, but recognizing that they're people just like everybody else, just like you are. So I think that's where that's where the understanding comes from for me, is recognizing that everybody is on the same playing field. I also also being engaged in church. Like the more involvement you have in church, the more you understand the people around you, the more you are connected with the people around you. Like I'm very close to my pastor. He knows everything that I do. I mean, I can go and talk to him about everything that I do, or the lifestyle that I live. But that came from years and years of involvement in relationship building in the church. So I would challenge people to be involved, like just as much as you're involved in the world, you need to be involved in church or in ministry or in all of those things, because that's how you build relationship. That's how you build relationship with Christ. I mean, it's not one way. I mean, relationships aren't one-sided. So as you are more involved, you understand the Bible, you understand what is required of you. You serve in ministry. Your life will change just because of that. So I think that's my piece. But I really hope that people aren't. I mean, I think it's an old way of thinking that the church is going to judge us, and you can't live. I mean, you can't have fun because you're churched. I mean, I've been churched my entire life.
Right.
But so yeah, I hope that's not people's take on being involved in church. But yeah, go ahead, Trey.
I think that we all can have fun and enjoy what we enjoy. You know, I say to my leaders sometimes that one of the issues of the older church, is that what we did not like, we called sin, even if it wasn't sin.
Right.
To have a glass of wine or have a glass of liquor is not a sin. You know, that's there's nothing sinful about that. Now, if you are in a situation of overindulgence of anything, then there can be sin attached to it because you are more controlled by the substance than you are by your discipline, right? We don't talk about that kind of stuff. There are other things that I think that are morally, as Shantae said, morally wrong to do, but it's not sin. For instance, we'll tell people, oh, you know, shacking up is a sin. So people will say two people cohabitating, male, female, whatever, that are living together, that are in a relationship, is sin. But that's not sin.
Right.
Cohabitation is not a biblical sin. The sin would be fornication, which could be happening without cohabitation.
Amen.
That's good.
As a matter of fact, two people cohabitating might be fornicating less because they have more time to argue and disagree. You know, but the point is, we label things sin that we don't want to tell people may not be the moral thing that they should do. So maybe we should sit down with a young adult and say, if your end game is to marry this man, moving in with him may not be the thing you want to do, because you don't want to create a household environment with him that doesn't consist of marriage, because then what will be the point of him marrying you? And I think that a young adult would appreciate that conversation more than they would saying you going to hell for shacking up. And they like, you can't even show me that in the Bible, so you sound dumb. Now, I will say this. I think that we are supposed to be witnesses of Christ, and we have to be careful what we do to show forth Christ in all that we do. And one of the things that I say to my young adults all the time, and they know I'm a part of their ministry. I am not an advisor to their ministry. I'm a part of their ministry because I'm in their age group. So I go to the meetings. I don't go to lead the meeting. I go to be a part of the meeting. But I say to them, one of the issues of our age generation is much of what we experience in life doesn't feel good unless we post about it.
Mm-hmm.
We live little in the moment without a camera recording what we're doing to post it on social media.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing I say to them is this: do you realize that what you put on an internet server that you believe you deleted is somewhere in the file somewhere,
Right.
that someone can pull up on you later, even when you've forgotten what you posted? You're looking for a job, the first thing they're doing is Googling you to see your social media. Nowadays, they'll ask you for your social media. They want to know. If you go to get arrested and you might not be involved in whatever it is, they're going to do a scan of you, all your social media. Even if it looks like they can pin it on you for anything you posted, you're in there.
True.
And we just have to be more cautious because in 10 years, when we've forgotten about some of the craziness, it has not outlived our past. And we have to calculate that a little bit better as people of faith, people of God, and then just even people who are not. You're just a human being. Live your life without a camera following you all the time. We are the most reality TV, reality social media minded people that don't have a contract and are getting paid for our mess. The
You're
whole
right.
world know your story. You're not even getting a dime for it. At least the Real Housewives and them get paid.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense. I think, and Drew, we have had the conversation often about the whole discretion piece, and it's something that I wrestle with because I feel like if I'm gonna do it, it's not a matter of me having to post in order for the moment to be fulfilled. But one, Facebook is a great way to just save all your pictures, period. Like when you lose your phone and all that, you still got something because you've posted it. So like that's that piece. But also, I mean, I think there's a balance between us as members of churches or leaders that we have to put on this fake persona that life and following Jesus is just dry and boring. And that, you have to just be completely covered from top to bottom. You can't do this, you can't do that. And I think that is a lot of stuff from old that is still here, that is still like an issue. Like, because it just is what it is. And just finding the balance of, no, I'm not necessarily posting this because I feel like the moment isn't complete unless I post it. I'm literally just posting it because I want to. Like, there's nothing deep about it. I think this picture's cute. I'm going to post it. I think that this shot glass is amazing. I'm going to post it. Like, it's not really always, we got to post it in order to be in the moment. I don't really think that that's all the way everybody. Well, that's not my take. That's not the purpose of me posting or even doing some of the things or whatever the case may be. So,
yeah, I will say this for me, this is for me. My social media is calculated. It is people trying to stay connected to me so that they can stay connected. But my life is something I share with my family and friends.
That makes sense.
It happens in more personal environments. It's nothing for me and you to be in a text conversation on FaceTime, cutting up, whatever.
Right.
It's nothing for me and Shantae and Alan Michael, whatever, whoever, to get on the phone or be in a text group sharing stories and information or whatever. My life is for people who really know me. It's not for niggas that want to screenshot my stuff and send it around the town. There's no good thing that comes from that. And it really is sometimes because I've let people into my space who really don't deserve to be there because they can't handle my truths.
Right.
But the people who can handle my truths, when we worry about judgment doesn't come from people who can handle our truths.
Mm-hmm.
Judgment comes from people who can't handle our truths, but we're trying to expose our truths to people that can't handle it. I never had to worry about being judged with y'all. I could tell y'all, I could call y'all tomorrow on the side of the road with handcuffs on me behind my back, and y'all will help to defend me even if I'm wrong.
Sure would.
That's what real friendship, real family relationship is about. And a lot of times we don't have it with people. They think they have it with us, but they can't handle it. That's why they go and tell it.
True.
And so I'm just saying, part of our social media needs to be maintaining relationships with people who are external to our circle. And our real interactions need to be pulling the people close to us who really can handle our truths in our life and holding on to them in more intimate moments of reality where we have conversation and not just spew out things. It's, you know what? I kind of close it like this, wrap it up like this. If something major happens in my life, you don't want to find it out on social media.
I sure don't.
Right? We've proven that.
Yes, yeah.
Right. So then it has to be a cognizant reminder that social media is not my real broadcasting tool, not for real life. My real broadcasting tool to me in my mind sometimes is social media because it gets it out to everybody at one time. But my real circle don't want to find it out that way. Right. So I need to say later for them niggas and worry about who is really in my life. And I get around to that later. Social media is on the back end after I've gotten to the people in my real circle.
That makes sense. That helps you. That makes sense. That put it in perspective. Mm-hmm. Hey man. Oh, somebody says, that's Kim. Kim said it's a small world. I want to thank y'all. Appreciate y'all. There were, of course, more questions, but that whole tithing piece, that whole giving piece, that whole just holding your weight, pulling your responsibility on your side for your church, I thought was most important. So we spent time on that. I appreciate the both of you for coming to share and being candid and open about pretty much whatever was discussed. The conversation always could continue, but just for those watching, just to keep in mind that the pandemic is relatively new to all of us. No one really knows how long it's going to last. No one really knows the effect that it will continue to have on us. So I do say, because I am friends with both pastor and leader, and because I am a leader, I will say to be patient. Be patient with your pastor because they are trying to figure it out just like you are. They're in the same pandemic as you, and nobody sent them a blueprint of how we were going to get through it. So I think patience and understanding is very important. And the fact that you all have families as well. Pastors have families that they're concerned about, that they're worried about through the pandemic. And then also as a leader, we just got to stand flat-footed, 10 toes down, and make sure that we continue to hold our pastors' arms up just as we would in the building, that we continue to do the same thing outside of the building. And, if you don't have anything nice to say, you probably should just keep it to yourself because it's not productive.
And add acceptance to your list. Accept what your pastor's restrictions are. There are some things I do not do. I don't care who it is. I'm not coming to a funeral with 50 people. Don't ask me. I'm not doing it. There are some things that we just don't do. And I think the same is true of members and leaders. There's some things my leaders and members not going to do, and I don't push them about it.
Right. That's good. That is good. And there's no love lost. Like, I think that's the thing people fail to realize. Like when you say if there's more than 50 people, no thanks. It ain't no love lost. You not they pastor no more. It's just, we all got to be careful. And you would want your pastor to live as long and as strong and healthy as possible.
If you having more than 10 or 15 people at the funeral and I don't want to come makes you leave the church, I'm sorry to see you go, but I'm also going to try to live after this is over.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that's the truth. That's definitely the truth. But thank you guys. I love y'all a good bunch. Yeah. Already know.
Love you too.
I think I answered everything. BJ said, wear your mask and be safe.
She's all right. And as we go, it's 5 o'clock somewhere.
Goodbye. See y'all.